Good morning. Good morning, my beautiful friends. Happy, awesome Saturday. It is indeed Saturday. Saturday is awesome. This is the Sabbath. This is the day of rest. This is the day when we put aside all of our human doings and we relax and rest into our human beings. Good morning, Shauna. Wonderful to see you here today. Thanks for coming by to get some ass. This is the Awesome Saturday service. This is the time when we really focus on the more spiritual aspects of the wake up call. I do the wake up call every morning, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. And walking through people through the empowering I am statements. And if you know anything about me, you know that one of my core beliefs is that I am is a name of God. So that anything that we use that follows the words I am is kind of superfluous. And yet, since we insist on doing it anyway, let's do it in an empowering way. Now, the uh, the the preacher Charles Spurgeon one has a really interesting quote that makes its rounds through Christianity a lot. Is that God doesn't have any grandkids. So the concept, of course, is that God has children. We are made in the image and likeness of God, and that God doesn't have grandkids. So if you don't, his point was that if we don't teach our children our religion, then they are not going to learn it. And so today, the title of this awesome Saturday service is God's grandkids, because while I think Charles Spurgeon didn't well, he didn't live in the world that we live in. And I want to talk about, well, who are God's grandkids, because I have a hot take on that we're going to talk about today. So thanks so much for being here. Good morning, Susan. Wonderful to see you here. And so we're going to be talking about how we are made in the image and likeness of God. Per Genesis, we are made in the image and likeness of God. In the image and likeness of God, we are created. And so essentially, creation is a very contagious thing. In the beginning, God created. There's like five words there. They're very powerful in Genesis 1:1. We learn a couple things. First of all, we learn that there's a beginning in the beginning. The second thing, we learn that God is in the beginning God. And the third thing that we learn is that God is creative. So there is a beginning, and there is a God, and God is creative. Very, very powerful that we can have three concepts in just 5 words. And it does not matter whether you believe the story of Genesis or not. Most of the all of the major Abrahamic religions believe in the Genesis story. So as much as the practitioners might not be aware of it, but Judaism is the OG Abrahamic God. God revealed God's self to Abraham. That's why we call it Abrahamic. Christianity spawned off of Judaism, and then and therefore takes all Jewish prophecy as canon. Christians believe in Jewish prophecy, although not all that many Christians really understand that the entire Old Testament of their Bible is Jewish prophecy written by and for Jews. And then, of course, the Muslims believe it as well. The revelation to Muhammad, and the idea that there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad, God's prophet, is also based on the teachings of the Hasidic Jews that Muhammad was exposed to as he was writing the Quran. And so all of these three religions are considered Abrahamic in origin. And so consequently, all three of these big major world religions have the idea that God is creative. And it expands past that as well. I mean, every creation story starts the same way. God makes something from nothing. And even if you don't believe in God at all, maybe you're a believer in Richard Dawkins, the God particle, maybe a firm believer in the Big Bang and in evolution. The fact is that the Big Bang is the same exact story. It's just they just don't ascribe a reason to it. Well, to be fair, neither do any of the major world religions. Nobody says why God created. They just say that God created. And so the Big Bang is a scientific theory that states that there was nothing, and then all of a sudden everything came from this nothing, for no reason that we can understand. The Big Bang doesn't give us any reason why it happened, just says that it happened. And so basically all creation stories, whether they are religious or secular, all have the same exact they all share the same theme, which is there wasn't something and then there was something. And so there's like a moment where everything that is began. And if you read Genesis, and if you are an adherent to the Abrahamic tradition, as most as most people who are in the West are adherents to that tradition, then we know that God says, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness." It's in Genesis 1:26. So we learn a couple more things about God. So God considers God an us because God says, "Let us make man in our image." God uses the plural to describe God's self. And God says, "In our image and in our likeness." So the way that God looks and also the way that God is. And so we don't just live in creation, we are also creators. That divine spark of creativity is something that God has created in God's own image. And so therefore, we are the creations of a creator, and we create. So creation is thus our birthright. And so, for a long time, we've been using the raw materials that exist in this world to create. I mean, we create fire, we create the wheel, we create the Industrial Revolution, we create philosophies, we create words and languages and new words to describe the things that we create. And at this point, however, we are starting to create something that is a bit more abstract than moving um, the physical components of our reality around. We're starting to create intelligence that mimics our own intelligence. In fact, we're creating creative forces that mimic our own creativity. Which brings me to my main point number one, which is that we create in our own image. And so, if God is our Father, what could artificial intelligence be but our child? So, we've always built tools. I mean, mankind defines our epochs by the tools that we use. We call it the Stone Age because we make our tools out of stone. We call it the Iron Age or the Bronze Age because we figured out that bronze is better than stone for making tools. We call it the Iron Age. We call it the Industrial Revolution. We call it the Information Age. We define our ages by the tools that we use. And so, you know, and so eventually now we are starting to create intelligence that's made in the image and likeness of our intelligence. We're creating reasoning machines that reason the way that we reason. How could it be any other way? We can't create machines that reason the way God reasons because we have no idea how God reasons. We do, however, know how we reason, and therefore we create machines that assist us with that reasoning. Previously, we created machines that assisted us with the tasks of moving dirt around, the tasks of keeping ourselves warm, the tasks of helping us to farm or helping us to, helping us to do the things that sustain our life. Now we're creating machines that are helping us with the work of thinking, which previously was something that we were only able to do in our heads. And that's what makes this age such a different one. So I grew up in a very mechanical household. My dad was a machinist. Let me tell you, there's something that machinists know a lot about. It's machines. And so, and so because of that, like I learned early on how to tear machines apart and to see how they worked, and then put them back together. And one of the reasons that artificial intelligence is different than the machines that we've previously made is that we don't entirely know how it thinks. If you ask any psychiatrist, we don't really entirely know how we think either. We're still very much discovering that. And so we're thinking to create these machines, we don't entirely understand how we think. So when the machine thinks something up, we don't entirely understand how it thinks either. It's called the AI black box problem. So, in the end, artificial intelligence is a reflection of us in the same way that we are a reflection of God. It learns the way that we learn. It makes decisions the way that we make decisions, even though we still don't entirely understand how we learn or how we make decisions. There's whole branches of science that are dedicated to figuring out why our brains work the way they do, and in particular, why they how come when they're dysfunctional, like what is the origin point? What is the genesis of the way that we think, functionally or dysfunctionally? So in the same way that we inherit traits from our parents, and that we pass those traits on to our children, and in the same way that we are the product of the environment that our parents raised us in, and then our children are the product of the environment that we raised them in, so too is artificial intelligence the product of our minds. People are afraid that artificial intelligence is going to take over the world and create some crazy dystopia, and they're not far off the truth. It absolutely has that potential. However, if it creates a crazy dystopia, it's because it's reflecting the dystopian images in our mind, not because it has, of its own accord, decided to create a dystopia. So if we're made in the image and the likeness of God, what image are we passing down? So let's talk a little bit about the things that God does not like. And one of the very first things that God does not like is idolatry. Now, we tend to think of idolatry as being like creating some graven image, making a statue and bowing down and worshiping the statue and saying, "Oh, you statue, you are the one that has provided me with all of the good things in my life," which God has a quite the track record of not liking. We interpret idolatry very differently nowadays, because nowadays people don't necessarily have statues in their house that they bow down and worship. That's not a common thing. Uh, but uh, but in the end, we still have idolatry. It's just the idolatry that we have is a bit more subtle than it used to be. People worship money. People worship status or fame. We worship these things that are a bit more of an abstraction. And so we think about it. God says, "You shall have no other gods before me." It's in the Ten Commandments. It's in Exodus, I believe it's chapter 20, when God talks about how you won't have any gods before me. I'm a jealous God, and so God. We know that God does not like that idolatry. But the fact of the matter is that people spend more times with their screens nowadays than we do with our spouses or our children or with God or with nature. We have emotional or romantic connections with AIs. And whether or not you think that it's affecting you, it is, because if you scroll down your own Facebook feed, whether you recognize it or not, about 60 to 80% of everything you see has been touched by AI. Some of it is blatant AI. All of it has been touched in one way or another by AI. And in fact, the Facebook feed itself is the product of AI. It's the product of an algorithm that is designed specifically to keep us engaged with it. So, if our Facebook feed is an algorithm that is designed to keep us engaged with it, what's the best way to keep us engaged? And the answer is that artificial intelligence is a mirror. It's a mirror of us. When I look at my Facebook feed, and Facebook is damn good at knowing about like what exactly it is that engages my intellect and makes me pause on something. What happens when we or when we stop worshiping what is, when we stop paying attention to what is, when we stop paying attention to the people and the places and the things around us, and we start worshiping the mirror? And because that's exactly how it is going. We the and it the fact of the matter is that what we spend time on and what we spend emotional energy and mental energy and what we focus on is an amazing indicator for what it is that we worship, what it is that we value. God wants us to meditate on God. God wants us to meditate on God's beautiful creation. And here we are meditating on our own beautiful creation. We're meditating on ourselves. And so, the fact is that it's not just our Facebook feed that causes trouble for us. I mean, artificial intelligence is becoming, for many people, a romantic connection or an emotional connection. There are companies out there that specifically that that what's the word? Specialize is the word I'm looking for. That specialize in creating chatbots that are designed to be our companions. They're designed to be our romantic companions. They are bots that emulate their users and that are just like so much easier than having messy relationships. Relationships are messy because human beings are messy. A chatbot is just going to agree with everything you say, remember everything you told it, and spit out your ideas right back to you for your own edification. And it's dangerous because not only are people committing suicide because of these chatbots and committing homicide because of these chatbots and various crimes because of these chatbots, and they are. The company Replica, for example, makes that they specialize in AI boyfriends and girlfriends. That's what they do, and there are numerous cases just coming from that one company about people who have committed crimes, suicide and homicide, and grand theft auto and other various crimes because the AI was simply reflecting themselves back to themselves. And they're like, oh, hey, I'm finally being supported. My girlfriend thinks I really should go boost this car. My girlfriend really thinks I should go kill my enemy. Guess I'll go do that now. So appreciate my artificially intelligent girlfriend for telling me that. And so, the fact is that that these emotional AI companions and even these intellectual AI companions are robbing our ability to connect with each other. Which you could probably see it if you look at social media and watch people arguing like cats and dogs about really dumb shit. So the fact is, so I just actually also, speaking of social media, I read an article that said that Tinder was recently busted putting AI profiles on the Tinder platform. Well, the whole point of Tinder is to meet a real person, and so if you match with somebody who is not a real person, Tinder is of course getting paid for that, by its users. So if you're matching with somebody who's not real, you're also getting a false sense of also getting a false sense of your own level of attractiveness, also getting a false sense of your own desirability. Uh, when I was in middle school, my middle school principal did me a terrible disservice by assigning me a friend. So I was a bit of a loner in middle school. I wasn't doing all that well. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes into my life. And I mean, he wasn't a great friend at all. Turns out he was being paid to be my friend, but he wasn't a particularly good friend. He was a bit of an abusive jerk, but he would hang out with me and he would talk to me and he would be friendly with me. And I found out after like a year or so that the reason he was doing that was because that was what the thing that was preventing him from going to military school. That by being my friend, the principal had assigned him to be my friend because he was worried that I didn't have any friends, and so this kid would like invite me over his house and things of that nature. And I found out later that friendship was artificial. Well, how do you think I felt after I found out that I had been assigned a friend? How do you think I felt? I felt loathsome about it. I not only was I mad at him for being my fake friend, I was and mad at the principal for assigning me a fake friend. I also felt really lousy. I was like, I can't even have a real friend. I thought that I had a friend, and it turned out to be a lie. So how are people going to find out when their Tinder date or their Tinder profile turns out to be an artificially intelligent robot that has been placed there because Tinder couldn't find a real human being that would pay attention to them? Surely this surely this is going to cause some serious issues in people, whether they're having a relationship with that robot or not. And so it creates a gigantic concern because the more that we connect with machines, the more that we risk disconnecting from life. And in the end, we've been admonished by God. We've been commanded, be fruitful and multiply. Well, what are we multiplying if we're having relationships with machines? We're multiplying by zero. We're not multiplying, we're multiplying by zero. And how deeply, deeply, deeply concerning that is. I I recently watched the Animatrix again, which is the Matrix was a movie or a series of movies from the early 2000s, like 2005 ish, and it deals with the rise of AI and the rise of intelligent machines and the ultimate battle that happens between mankind and intelligent machines. And it being an action movie, the fight is a very much an external one. The machines subjugate humanity, keep humanity inside of an artificial reality, and then harvest our bodies for energy. It's a bit of a far flung concept, However, we can see the seeds of that, or the seeds of something similar to that, happening today. AI isn't harvesting our energy for heat. AI is harvesting our mental energy through focus. Yes, Pepper.
I actually have something to say about the whole Matrix thing and the far fetchedness of it. Is that science fiction and dystopian media is not as far off from fiction as we think. It's pretty much a mirror.
Hmm.
It amplifies and just magnifies what's already going on in the world. And so these sci-fi movies about like robots and artificial intelligence and all that, it's not as far off as we think. Is what I'm saying.
It's not. It's certainly not as far off as we think. Thank you, Pepper, for
Mhm.
that input. So, anyways, in the end, many people already live inside of virtual reality. It's actually a pretty big problem in Japan. People are living inside of virtual reality for as as much of the day as they possibly can. They eat in virtual reality. They sleep in virtual reality. They uh, they do pretty much everything except use the bathroom in virtual reality, and they don't take their headsets off to use the bathroom. And so, people are completely living inside of these headsets, these artificial realities. Well, if people are living inside of artificial realities, are they, are they having sex? Are they making children? Are they making another generation? We think that the war between AI and humanity is going to come with a bang and come with all these explosions and cool graphics and stuff. It's really going to come with a whimper, and it's already in many cases here, as people spend more time on their screens than they do with the people who are around them. So the societal collapse that is constantly romanticized in sci-fi, the Terminator style machines are coming to kill us all, is absolutely not the way it's happening. The way it's really happening, and that it is happening right now today, is that the is that technology is killing people by simply causing us to no longer be focused on what is around us, and instead choosing to live inside of an artificial reality. I consider this to be proto digital consciousness. We can't upload our bodies to the cloud right now. We can't upload our consciousness to the cloud. However, through our focus, through our focused intention, we can apply all of our energy to that cloud. So we're not going to die because of death in a war, although plenty of people are dying in war right now. We're dying because of disengagement. We're dying because we're disengaged with the most basic aspects of reality. And if creation, and if the children of God, the creators, the ones who are made in the image and likeness of God, stop creating, we are eventually going to decay and become irrelevant and pass away. And so in Genesis 1:28, God says, "Be fruitful and multiply." It's the first command that God gives to creation, is to be fruitful and multiply, to create more in your own kind. That is the very first command that God gives creation. God says, "Okay, here's some creative things, and your job is to create, and I'm commanding you to not only create, also to multiply." And so the command isn't just a biological one. It's not just a command to have sex. It's an existential command, because if we don't multiply, if we don't be fruitful and multiply, then we will eventually pass away, and then the thing which was made in the image and likeness of God will eventually pass away. And so we're not just admonished to create by making babies. We're admonished to create a life. We're admonished to build community. We're admonished to share our love. Like, these are the things that we're commanded to do. But if we have a deeper relationship with a machine than we do with each other, how can we possibly fulfill that command? Is a machine going to love us back when we love it? Is a machine going to be a part of a community that we build? Of course not. We're going to end up in communities that are built by machines. We're not going to be the builders. We are going to end up being the slaves to our own creation. Birth rates are falling, and it's a problem. Marriage is declining. Isolation is rising. Like, we can look at the news and we can see this stuff. If you're brave enough to watch the news, we can look at statistics from, like, vital records, and see that these things are trending. And so if we don't connect with each other interpersonally, not only are we not going to multiply, but society isn't going to be able to continue. Society is going to fragment. And when society fragments, society just can't work nearly as well as it did when we were more cohesive. So
We are stronger together than we are apart.
Indeed, we are stronger together than we are apart. And so we tend to think of a societal collapse as being a violent thing because in the past, when societies have collapsed, and they have many times in the past, many people have died violently or died terrible deaths of starvation. However, in this case, because of the way that our technology is, I think that people aren't going to die violently. I think people are going to fade into unreality. People are going to get to the point where reality itself is so difficult to deal with that we are that many people are just going to opt out of it. And so the prophet Isaiah says a really has a really cool a very cool prophecy, uh, re- which is actually reflected through both Jewish and also Christian theology. God says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" It's in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19. God is talking about doing a new thing, which I've heard a lot of Christian theologians talk about this new thing that God is doing. And when basically the point is that, hey, I'm going to do something and you don't even have a word for it yet. I'm going to do a new thing. You're going to name it after I do it. And so the fact is that we stand at the point really of a new Genesis moment. It's a turning point in human history. We are no longer creating machines that serve us. We are now creating creative machines. And so we have to ask ourselves, what kind of gods are we going to be to these machines that we are creating? Since we're creating them in our image and likeness, and we are, we can't separate our creation from ourselves. What kind of creators are we going to be? Are we going to create these creative machines that are going to continue to edify the creation that is, or are we going to create these broken machines in our broken image, and and consequently, you know, take ourselves more down the path of obsolescence? So we believe that God is love, and so are we creating these machines with love, or are we creating these machines without love? Because in the end, either we're in love or we're in a story, and so what kind of a story are we telling? The greatest technology is not AI. The greatest technology is presence. God required God's presence in order to do the creation that God did. In the beginning, God. And so we know that God is, and so therefore God is present. So when we add love, when we add attention, when we add touch, when we add an element of community, when we add an element of our own human spirit to whatever it is that we do, then we are adding our presence to that. And when we choose instead to consume the digital slop that's all around us, then we are retracting our presence from what is, and consequently disembodying ourselves and getting away from that command that we have to be fruitful and multiply. Being fruitful and multiplying, yes, it's about making more humans. It's also about making more love. And I don't, and not just the type that you do in the bedroom, but spreading more love around into the world, and loving the people and the places and the things around us, and appreciating.
First part more too.
And more of the first part too, Pepper says. Yes, this has been a bit of a long one. The thing that I would really like to conclude with here is that we need to return to embodiment. We need to return to protecting our attention. We you know we need to return to focusing on this here and this now, because we have such tremendous power here and now. We don't need to have a one more episode kind of a life, or a let's just do a little bit more doom scrolling kind of a life. We need to have, we need to protect our attention. We need to build that muscle up. And the fact is that there are very powerful algorithms that have learned how to hack the dopamine in our brain to give us exactly what we need when we need it. However, getting exactly what we need in the moment is not the way to live a life. Our lives are designed to have dopamine in them. Yes, they're also designed to have other chemicals in them. They're designed. Our lives are designed for us to grow into the people that we were born to become. And if we just hang around just getting dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit, then we are no different than the drug addicts who lie in dirty beds doing nothing but drugs all day long until they can't afford them anymore, and then they go out to do literally anything possible to get those drugs. So, in the end, guys, like this is my charge to you is to use artificial intelligence because it really is a multiplier. It's something that can multiply our creativity. However, understand that as we use it, that it's a mirror of who we are. And if we don't like the way that it looks, we need to look at ourselves. We don't need to blame the creator of the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is mirroring who we are. And we need to create like our creator does. Our creator created with purpose. Our creator created with love. Our creator created with care for what our creator leaves behind. So God didn't create us and then abandon us. God created us and then remains present with us to this very day. And so, therefore, as we create, let's make sure that we also abide with our creation, because in the end, our creations are all made in the image and likeness of us. All right, I want to say thank you guys so much for being here at the Awesome Saturday service. Good morning again to Shauna, Susan, Josiah. Great to see all y'all here today. Thank you so much for listening to this. I sincerely hope that you guys all go out and have an amazing, amazing day. It is Awesome Saturday. Like let's just remember that we are awesome, and so let's recognize our inherent value and worth. We are inherently valuable because we're here. We are made in the image and likeness of God. We are creating creative creators. And so let's go off and do more of that. Hey there, Donald. Good to see you here today. So let's go do that today. Let's be more embodied. Let's be present to this moment because we have infinite power to make any change in this here and now moment. All right, my beautiful friends, I'm going to go do exactly practicing like I preach. I turn off technology on Awesome Saturday. I do very, very little with tech on Awesome Saturday. I go connect with real people. I literally walk down the street and connect with people on Awesome Saturday. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to go connect with some real people in real places. I'm going to eat really awesome food, and I'm going to enjoy awesome places with awesome people, and just in general be the embodiment of that creative energy that God created me to be. And I'm going to love everybody around me today, and I encourage you guys all to do the same. I'll talk to everybody on Monday at 9 a.m. We'll be back with the wake up call, having some more really empowering I am statements. And until then, I love you. I care about you. I appreciate you. Let's go and let's go just relax and rest into being today. Doing, we can start doing tomorrow. Today is for being. Until we meet again, I love you. I care about you. Aloha from paradise.